Welcome to our Minnesota Microbusiness Post-Licensing Masterclass. I'm your host, Dr. Lucas McCann. We're going to get started right away. I'm the CSO and co-founder of CannDelta. We're a regulatory and scientific cannabis consulting firm. We've been around since 2018 and in that time have helped launch over 400 licensed cannabis businesses across the US and in international countries such as Canada, Germany, Australia, and a few others. We work across the country, we work coast to coast, and we're very excited about the Minnesota cannabis industry. It's got an extremely well thought out market, and we're very excited to see folks who have applied in the recent licensing application round start to achieve their licenses. I've got a background in medicinal organic chemistry, and I have expertise in cannabis product commercialization, production and testing, licensing, and operations across all aspects of the industry. We work across all the various verticals. I'm a former government employee and experienced small business consultant that loves working with startups as a coach, as a guide, an advisor, and as a consultant. Recently, we published our Minnesota post-licensing ebook, which is available for download off of our website. This includes everything that you need to be thinking about that you would include general steps for post-licensing work, such as seeking municipal approval, checking for zoning particulars, finding the right site plans, site design, process flow for your cultivation component, manufacturing, for analytical testing licenses, but also for retail licenses. And as we know, the microbusiness can be a vertically integrated license if all the endorsements were selected on the application. That ebook is available now on our website at CannDelta.com/Minnesota ebook. Get yours today. Our goal for this webinar is to help microbusiness preliminary license holders prepare to launch a compliant and profitable cannabis business as fast as possible. The race is on now to ensure that you find a compliant property and obtain your municipal resolution as quickly as possible. We offer location support, and we also offer all the guidance that would be required to not just operationalize the business, but to ensure your pre-operation inspection from the OCM goes seamlessly and you can begin operations right away. Here's a shot of our team. Our team is a group of business strategists, regulatory experts, scientists, MBAs, PhDs. We're across the gamut. We've worked in several jurisdictions, and Minnesota is not the first market we've worked in. We've gained the expertise and the wisdom from helping launch 400 businesses, and we certainly have a strong idea of how to prioritize all that needs to be done when starting up a new business in the state of Minnesota. We do have a local office in New York City. We're located at 99 Hudson Street, so for those that are looking to connect in the area, they can certainly connect with us that way. And we are appearing at several events across the state, such as the CannaCon event in Minneapolis in August of 2025. Again, we've been featured in several publications such as Forbes, Marijuana Moment, Benzinga, BNN, and MJ Biz Daily, to name a few. In the time that we've launched those 400 cannabis businesses, both across the country and internationally, we've picked up a thing or two, and we really enjoy helping to launch small businesses into industry-leading facilities. We've been featured in some very exciting articles, and we often get interviewed about our opinion about where the industry is going. Our clients span the verticals, so we work with folks from the production side, which includes cultivation at all scales, both micro, meso, and larger cultivation production facilities, all the way up to 100,000 plus feet. We've done processing facilities, canning, bottling lines, extraction facilities, everything from BHO to ethanol to even physical press and ice water extraction. We've worked with analytical testers, and more specifically, even retail dispensary operators. We've done a number of those. We were lucky enough to be able to assist over 50 applicants in the Minnesota cannabis lottery round that had just occurred. Those applications were submitted and are now in review for licensure. And if you're one of the lucky ones who applied for a microbusiness, you've probably have received your preliminary license. So just to highlight some key differences between what a preliminary license would be versus your full license, we've prepared this handy chart. So the preliminary license is issued when a third-party background check has been passed for all folks in the organizational structure, and a labor peace agreement has been signed, executed, and submitted to the OCM. It's valid for 18 months, giving you that much time to be able to operationalize your business, which is not a whole lot of time to be able to start a business from scratch and pass a final inspection from the OCM. The purpose of this is it allows applicants to finalize a lot of the particulars around their business, their organizational structure, and the location in which they hope to conduct business. Oftentimes, people will seek investment and even change the organizational structure and have to declare additional individuals on their business and conduct background checks with them. In terms of the permitted activities that can be conducted, there are none that have to do with cannabis anyway. Seeking investment and looking for property are certainly permitted, pre-operational activities that are allowed, and for additional requirements, you must secure a location and get that local zoning approval. Once you have your full cannabis license, after that municipal approval has been obtained and your site is built out to meet the regulations put forward by the OCM, you can then apply for your full cannabis business license and conduct operations. That's only after completing all the regulatory steps, including completing successfully your site inspection and paying all the required fees. The license is ongoing. There'll be annual fees. And if regulatory compliance is maintained, you shouldn't have any issues about being able to maintain that license. In terms of the purpose for the full cannabis license, it's really to begin cannabis operations, start conducting transactions, and to generate a return on your investment. For permitted activities, whatever your endorsements that were ticked off on the microbusiness application would allow, once you've passed your final inspection, should allow for those endorsements to begin to be active activities permitted under the scope of your license. And in terms of the additional requirements, the retail businesses must obtain an additional local retail registration before they can actually begin sales and start selling cannabis products. For the timeline post-licensing, we would expect the following. The initial application has been done, your license has been awarded, the preliminary license, and we begin through the process of securing a location. So we offer location support services, looking for suitable real estate, engaging municipalities in obtaining that resolution or that approval for the zoning. We then compile all the final application docs, which is a requirement, assist with the build-out phase, including compliance, security, design, and implementation, and then finally, an OCM inspection and a licensure event, followed by the launch of your business with marketing and sales following thereafter. Step 1, finding a compliant location. So much of the business depends on obtaining not just a compliant location, but also a site that would allow for all of the activities listed in the endorsements that you've applied for with your microbusiness. State law doesn't tell local governments how to zone cannabis businesses, so at the local level, there is a lot of regulation that is important to understand, which is separate from what the OCM has released and spoken about. If you haven't engaged a municipality in conversation about your cannabis business, now would be the time to do so if you plan to operate there. This means local governments have the freedom to set zoning rules, which could include certain zoning areas in which certain endorsements may or may not operate, setback distances from other cannabis businesses, and setback distances from other sensitive buildings, such as schools, daycares, hospitals, places of worship, and potentially rehab centers. An example would be Minneapolis. Cannabis dispensaries must be at least 300 feet from elementary and high schools. They must be located in a commercial or an industrial area that is at least 3 acres large and would allow for a dispensary. The zoning rules for other Minneapolis cannabis businesses are coming soon, so we'll report on those later. Another example for Minneapolis zoning is that the red, blue, and purple parcels shown here in this graph are zoned for dispensary operations. The gray parcels here are not zoned for dispensaries. Blue areas represent a 300-foot buffer zone around the elementary and high schools where dispensaries are not allowed to exist and to operate. If any part of the parcel touches the blue zone, it's ineligible for a dispensary, meaning a lot of care and attention must be put into understanding these zoning maps, and then further, seeking that actual approval with the specific address from the municipality to ensure that when the OCM is looking at the final application, they have absolutely no concerns that you've gone through the proper process and sought those approvals. The approval process is typically before the inspections and build-out. Your location must be listed in your final application and approved by the local government. After submitting finalized documents to the OCM will forward your application to the listed municipality. Local officials have 30 days to confirm your zoning compliance for your proposed site. If approved, you move on to the next step of the licensing process, but unfortunately, if denied, you must find a new compliant location or potentially work with officials to obtain a variance or to seek out some kind of resolution to the zoning issues that are of concern. Step 2, compile final application documents and submit those to the Office of Cannabis Management. The final license application contains finalized particulars about how you will be operating and respecting the cannabis law and cannabis regulations put forward by the OCM. You'll need to update your plans in your initial license and application with complete and finalized procedures, plans, and disclosures, which include operational plans, which are detailed plans outlining daily activities and staffing, your security plan, which is final security measures meeting the state requirements such as visual surveillance, access control, motion detection, alarms, and retention of visual surveillance and access control data. Standard operating procedures are a must. Inventory control and diversion prevention, quality assurance, accounting, and tax compliance are a few key SOPs that must be included in that final application package. Proof of funding and the ability to demonstrate financial readiness will be paramount to ensure that your application proceeds smoothly, as the OCM will like to know how you are able to fund and subsidize the business activities that you're looking to undertake to ensure that all investors have been disclosed and there are no silent investors on your application. And finally, ownership and financial disclosures. These revised and ownership disclosure forms must include anyone who's invested significant portions to your business to see it operationalize. And that can include an updated capitalization table, which might change from the time your application was submitted to when doors open. Now, the facility layout diagram is an important component that highlights all the different process areas in your facility or retail space. It is a detailed floor plan showing the layout, equipment location, and many of the security device features that might be featured in your facility or your store. It demonstrates how the facility meets the Minnesota regulatory requirements for cannabis operations and is a key component for the final application. It assists with detection and safety for fire, smoke, and carbon dioxide detection. It's important for highlighting ventilation and sanitation, including filtration for air coming in and being exhausted from the building, for access to the public, for employees, and for perhaps visitors and auditors, as well as for physical security, both demonstrating how we're going to limit and restrict access areas from the public to potentially other employees whose rights do not necessarily involve them accessing certain areas, ID verification points for retail, camera placements, and visual surveillance coverage zones. The floor plan should also demonstrate clearly where product handling and storage will occur. If there are certain production areas that will be separate from the store, those must be clearly delineated. Storage areas for production and as well as cannabis waste must be highlighted on this site plan. Licensed areas such as retail, cultivation, and explicit information about square footage and size will be required, as well as areas for manufacturing, information about plant canopy space and staff, office space, as well as any other designated space for lunchrooms or break rooms. The equipment layout is very important for cultivation and manufacturing, as well as retail operations, to highlight areas such as cultivation rooms, grow tables, irrigation, canning, bottling lines, or even points of sale. And tracking and compliance, indicating how metric integration points, surveillance equipment, and data storage locations will be laid out on that site plan will be key. Compiling all this information then gets submitted to the OCM as part of the finalized application package. Once your documents are finalized and your location is secured, the next step is to submit your complete application to the OCM. The OCM will then forward it to the local government for zoning approval. Step 1 is to submit the final documents to the OCM. The OCM then forwards your application and you obtain the official local zoning approval in the final step. Step 3, build out and security. Build out and security. The next step will be to engage vendors to help to, 1, provide requests for proposals on the work that must be conducted at the site, install and integrate security features, install any kind of client-facing areas that might exist, lighting, secured storage areas, HVAC, environmental control, as well as other display or helpful equipment pieces that might take up some important real estate. With the various kinds of vendors that are out there, it's important to understand who has worked well in the space and who has great reputations, specifically within not just Minnesota, but the cannabis industry altogether. From there, once you have your site planned, you'd want to seek building permits, and then finally, once the construction has been completed, seek your certificate of occupancy, which demonstrates to the town that you've completed the work that was been purported by the architects involved in the process of constructing the location. You want to ensure that you have all the required permits, that your location meets all the zoning laws, the land use rules, and adheres to all applicable rules before breaking ground or beginning your renovations. And then finally, the construction and security installation. Complete the fixture installation and build out all the required spaces to meet the compliance and the operational standards for the state of Minnesota. Managing vendors. There are several different kinds of vendors that will need to come to the table oftentimes to complete these projects if you're not doing this yourself. Those can include structural and construction, so floor plan layout, demonstrating where walls and partitions to spaces will exist, ceilings, floors, inventory and storage, and then your MEP diagrams, which should demonstrate mechanical, electrical, plumbing layouts, HVAC, and lighting, and then fixtures and equipment. So your sales counters, your point of sale and the software, displays, and signage for the store or for the facility. Here's an example of a few site security diagrams or site security designs that we've designed previously. These different site security designs highlight the surveillance systems, the access control features, the secure storage or vault areas, where the alarms and the emergency stations are located, and also overlap those against the quality and environmental control systems that will exist in the place for your facility. In the first diagram, we have a general floor layout indicating a few key spaces, such as the retail sales floor, the ID verification space, the point of sale, and the storage. In the next image, we're showing where the physical security features to help maintain the security will exist on that floor plan, such as central viewing stations, panic buttons, and perhaps other seismic sensors that might exist along the walls of your secured storage space. We map out these areas in terms of the different kinds of activities that will be conducted, such as storage and non-storage spaces, and then as well highlight the different kinds of activities that will occur in those spaces, just as client-facing retail sales, or perhaps employee-only cannabis storage areas. For physical security, we want to think about the principles of physical security, such as deter, detect, deny, delay, and defend. With these rings of security, we can help to prevent any kind of unauthorized access to the space by 1, making physical security very evident in the facility, detecting any kind of unauthorized access, denying by having, for example, locked fixtures, removing access from the public, delay by preventing easy access to certain spaces, reinforced walls, heavy doors, and then defend certain other criteria that could exist in the physical security parameters, which can include strobes, flashing lights, and alarms to help protect your inventory and your store and your business. Here is a diagram highlighting the location of a retail dispensary that is part of a building inside a much larger building envelope. We've highlighted the building perimeter and the visual surveillance particulars around the exterior of the building, showing that the actual part that is controlled by the operator will have complete visual surveillance, and that any partition walls along either side are again protected by the neighbors' dividing walls. The visual surveillance in this area will have 2 crisscrossing dome cameras with an 8 to 10 megapixel per foot 8 to 10 pixel per foot resolution on the cameras to help to improve the visual surveillance by providing acute environmental awareness of anyone that might be approaching that building from the front or from the rear. This is an example of a manager's or a security office. While managers might be working on scheduling, they'll have access to a central viewing station that may have eyes on all various parts of the retail dispensary or the facility. This allows some cross-functionalization for folks that will be working on staff, always helping to ensure that we've got eyes on the sales floor or in the facility. When selecting display cases, we want to use display cases that are effectively purpose-built for either jewelry or specific to cannabis, which can include reinforced tempered glass that resists cracking and shattering, with locked drawers underneath to help with storage of product on the sales floor by lock and key. An example of some different kinds of camera layouts we've seen in dispensaries include both dome and bullet style cameras, oftentimes in crisscrossing locations across from the points of sale. The dome camera listed there on the side wall has an excellent view of anything that might be happening behind the cash register in terms of the cash drawer itself and the bud tender serving the client. Whereas the 360 pendant style camera that's more to the left of the screen is getting an uninterrupted 360-degree fisheye lens view of all activity on both sides of that point of sale counter. On the secure storage side, we make recommendations for the kinds of reinforcements that we would typically like to see for an area in which cannabis products will be stored. This can include various materials such as metal or even various thickness of plywood to be used to reinforce the walls for secure storage areas. Oftentimes we would, it'd be ill-advised to place certain vents for HVAC around areas that are protecting areas for the secure storage to limit any kind of unauthorized access. Here we have a diagram of an evidence storage room. We take a lot of the recommendations that we recommend for cannabis storage rooms from the FBI requirements for building a tamper-resistant evidence room at a police station. The implementation of certain features can limit sight lines from the outside to the inside of a cannabis storage area, such as the use of pass-throughs. The pass-through is a very simple design which resembles a bookshelf stored on the back with a dividing wall in between the front of the store and the secure storage space that allows for orders to be picked for anyone coming into the store. Not only does this minimize sight lines, but it also can restrict anyone who's in the store from understanding how much product is stored at a time or how many individuals may be back in the secure storage room. In addition to that, we also add in a central viewing station in the back, so for anyone who is picking orders in the back room, they can keep eyes on the store at all times. When looking at security, having a robust door schedule is usually very well advised. This is a very simple door that has a door contact using a barrel key lock system. Typically these keys would be non-duplicate keys that would be managed by whoever the head of security might be in this facility. On the attack side, we'd remove any kind of exposed hinges to prevent any kind of unauthorized access by popping hinges out, and then having those more on the safe side, along with the junction box and sometimes an electric piezo alarm that would go off in the event that that door contact would be active and someone used the door. For access to the cannabis storage area, we strongly recommend the use of a dual identification PIN pad card reader to identify access two-factor. Now this is helpful in cases where employees might be carrying around ID cards. Those ID cards can sometimes get mixed and matched or even just found on the exterior of a facility. This would prevent anyone who finds a key card in the parking lot from gaining access to some key parts to the facility, including the secure storage room. So dual factor also helps to highlight who has actually accessed those spaces, providing a record of anyone who has entered into protected spaces. This dual factor identification keypad would be tied into an electric strike, which would then release. The door contact would then be shunted, preventing the alarm from going off once the proper credentials from a key card and a PIN pad have been entered into the device. Again, there's a lot that can be done in the design and store layout, site design for a store, to help control and respect the regulations put forward by the OCM. This can be done by the use of dividing walls, such as blocking any kind of visual sight lines from the beginning of a store until ID has been verified for anyone that might be coming in. Further to that, the use of a secured storage directly behind a point of sale station is a very common layout that we see in retail dispensaries, as it helps to minimize the amount of steps that must be taken and allows for storage of cannabis products to be as close as possible to the point of sale without having to compromise I think, the customer experience in that particular layout. In terms of the timelines for what you'll be looking at, allow approximately 2 to 4 weeks for the site design and architectural planning, 6 to 12 weeks for permitting and approvals to occur. Construction can be at least 4 to 10 weeks, so even doubling on that timeline is strongly recommended. For security installation, 1 to 2 weeks is a fairly generous timeline, followed by a final inspection scheduling of about 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the OCM schedule. Typical duration for the build-out for interior construction can be anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000. With that, security can be anywhere from $15,000 to $75,000. POS and associated tech stack can be $10,000 to $30,000. Fixtures and furnishings have a very wide range here of $10,000 to $100,000, depending on how luxurious finishes you wish to implement. And then total for architects, engineers, and consultants can be anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000, with an estimated total value of $500,000 for construction. Of course, dispensaries can go much higher than this. This just represents a sample for what we've seen for dispensaries that are building out around the 1,000 to 1,500 square feet mark. For manufacturing, the build-out can be somewhat similar, with design and planning of about 2 to 4 weeks, permitting and approvals up to 12 weeks, construction and installation on the lighter side 4 to 10 weeks, security systems and final inspection allow 1 to 2 weeks for scheduling those. With interior construction, higher range of $200,000, security system again falls within the range of $15,000 to $75,000. Your tech stack with POS can be somewhere in the $25,000 to $150,000 and plus, with fixtures and finishings ranging at least from $10,000 to $30,000. Again, from this side, budget over $500,000 on the manufacturing, and probably closer to $1 million would be accurate here. From the cultivation side, very similar in terms of what you'd be expecting for build-out and timelines, site planning, facility design, somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, 6 to 12 for permitting and approvals and construction and systems installation. For security installation and final inspection, allow 1 to 2 weeks budgeted. Build-out phase, somewhere between the $15,000 to $200,000 mark for internal facility construction. Again, this is towards a micro business. Outdoor site preparation and sometimes land development can go between $15,000 to $75,000. For HVAC and odor control systems, you're going to land typically somewhere between $25,000 and $150,000. Lighting systems, $10,000 to $30,000 budgeted. Irrigation and fertigation, probably on the higher side of $40,000, and security systems for both indoor and outdoor, somewhere on the range of $15,000 to $75,000. With cultivation specific equipment and tech, 10 to 30 is on the light side, and professional services, again, similar range. Total estimated cost here is typically somewhere between the $500,000 to $1 million. Step 4, launch and inspection. The site inspection occurs with local zoning approval being secured and the physical location built in a compliant manner. The next major milestone is passing the OCM inspection. This includes certain key components that we'd like to draw your attention to: security compliance, operational readiness, and regulatory compliance. On the physical security side, proper surveillance and restricted access areas and inventory tracking measures must be put in place before the OCM is called for final inspection. That means your servers and visual surveillance systems, as well as your access control, should not just be set up, but should also be functioning and recording. For operational readiness, we want a facility that is fully built out with the necessary equipment, workflows, and protocols in place. That includes having SOPs that are reviewed, that staff have been trained on, and that everyone understands what their roles and responsibilities are, so they're ready for day one. And then finally, from the regulatory compliance side, an adherence to state laws, including cannabis handling, storage and safety, and of course, proper compliance to taxation. Preparing for the site inspection has 4 key components we'd like to highlight: the OCM compliance, the facility readiness check, the document preparation, and then conducting a mock inspection and issue resolution. For OCM compliance, it's important to understand and apply the OCM facility security and operational requirements. Facility readiness and check confirms surveillance, locks, and access controls are fully operational. Document preparation includes organizing your SOPs, your security logs, and compliance records for inspection. And mock inspection and issue resolution includes addressing any flagged issues, scheduling a mock inspection with CannDelta to ensure your readiness. Local registration. If your microbusiness includes a retail endorsement, you must secure a local retail registration after receiving your full cannabis license to begin selling products. Each municipality decides how many registrations will be issued. The approved method, either by lottery, review, or something else. And local rules, which can include the security that's required at the site, the hours of operation, and what the community impact might look like or what that should be shaped by. Registration steps can include applying to your municipality, paying local fees, and completing the compliance checks such as zoning confirmation, tax verification, and then your final local inspection. After being approved by your local government, you will receive approval to begin your retail operations. And congrats, you're open. Now let's think about some of the important aspects about running a successful business that will need to be considered. Growth and market expansion. So maximizing your profitability by increasing your exposure, brand development and customer retention strategy, target market strategy, and your sales channels. Let's not stop thinking about compliance and operations, such as ongoing compliance, managing your license, reporting to the state, and ensuring that your standard operating procedures and forms are not just being completed and respected, but they're being regularly reviewed and trained upon. And then finally, leadership and strategy. Think of executive coaching, leadership training, manager training, product commercialization and go-to-market strategy, and staffing, training that is completely ongoing and ever improving. Marketing doesn't begin on day one. It begins once the concept of a business has really been born. That can include integrating an e-commerce component to your website, which allows customers to be attracted, brings customers in through various channels such as Google, Maps, or other various search engines like ChatGPT. Attracts customers, it boosts sales, it builds trust, and it helps your business to scale more effortlessly. Again, your website is a salesperson that never sleeps. Social media is a great way to engage and find new followers, to educate and grow your audience by converting engagement into dollars and sales. And then finally, SEO. You can minimize your ad spend, convert leads with targeted emails, and inform customers and nurture relationships. Driving leads based on informationally based articles is a great way to ensure that your website starts to populate on the first pages of search engines. Again, we like to highlight we have the Minnesota post-licensing ebook available for free on our website with a lot of great helpful tools and resources. We've got some great resources available on our website through YouTube. If you need some more help, feel free to check out all of these great resources available online at no cost to you. And of course, if you have more questions about what it would look like to have CannDelta assist you with your post-licensing process and your journey, we'd love to help.